Welcome to The Gateway, your compass through the uncharted waters of the mystical and spirit communication, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. In the next hour, we'll traverse the realms of the paranormal and explore the enigmatic world of spirit communication through my special guest, James Annitto. James is a longtime demonologist, paranormal investigator, and researcher. He's been on my show before, Small Town Tales, and he's also traveled with me, or rather, I traveled with him through Romania on a tour with Mysterious Adventures Tours. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you doing, Crystal?
I'm doing good. It's really nice to see your face again.
It's good to see you as well. It's been since Romania since I last saw you.
I know. We haven't talked to each other for a long time.
Well, we've talked to each other, but not physically, face to face.
Not face to face. It's been too long, friend.
Yes, it has.
James, your specialty is demonology, and we're going to jump right into this. What got you down this path into demons?
Well, I would say I wish it would be the same story that a lot of people give about why they got into the paranormal. The traditional story is that I dealt with a haunting when I was a child, or I could see and hear and would have nightmares or visions or would astral project out of my body. But none of that actually occurred in my childhood. And really what really kind of catapulted me into the paranormal field and into demonology in itself was childhood trauma and struggles with the ideology of God or a higher power in religion. So, of course, as a troubled child, being adopted and raised by a Lutheran family, having to go to Bible study and church every Sunday, hearing how God is so good and hearing, everybody praising and, there was just something with me as a childhood rebellious, maybe, that I was like, this doesn't seem authentic. I seen the cliques, I seen the troubled kids, the parents getting mad at their children, and there was just so much that I would analyze as a child in this predicament. And of course, being told the story that why I was given up by my family or my biological parents and adopted, I really started kind of doubting a lot of what God would brought forth to humankind, or if God existed in general. So, probably 8 or 9 when I could become literate in the sense of understanding, of course, a verbiage and being able to read myself, I started picking up a lot of tomes and a lot of manuals and a lot of scientific journals within theological sense viewpoints, and then of course biological and anthropological. And I was very into macroevolution. I would like to call myself in the youth a Darwinist. Now we know it as neo-Darwinism, but I was a Darwinist as a child because I was so on the evolution bandwagon that was my kind of mantra to disprove God and a higher power. So, but yeah, no, for most of my youth, I dug myself into encyclopedias, into different tomes of mythologies and theologies. And then basically I came across a few shows and a few books that talked about the paranormal. My adopted mom used to watch Montel Williams, and a pretty potent guest on that show was Sylvia Brown, well-known psychic medium at the time, also known became a fake later on in life. And then, of course, there was Leonard Nimoy in Search Of, and then there was also a show called Scariest Places on Earth, which threw families into haunted locations with these devices before like the big paranormal boom, where they would record themselves in the situation. It was kind of like a game show. So I was invested in that in my early childhood, and I was like, well, okay, well, now it's kind of like going down the rabbit hole like Alice did to receive the Wonderland. And I said, okay, well, ghosts are a fundamental possibility in the sense of like a phenomena. Maybe ghosts could be an outlet to help me understand a higher power. If ghosts exist, and then that would give kind of credence to a god or higher power. And then of course, I was big into ufology as well as a child, big into science fiction. Star Wars is my favorite movie. As you can tell, I have a few Star Wars posters behind me. So I started analyzing, okay, well, if things lived on beyond this universe or beyond this earth, and there are other Goldilocks zones, and life is permeating on those lands, what would life look like? And so it really started becoming so much a part of my life. And then when Ghost Hunters came out, that was really the kind of the trigger that really put me into actually getting involved in paranormal investigating or ghost hunting when I was 14, on the cusp of 15 years old, because then there was like a aha moment that, okay, well, I live in Rhode Island. There are people in Rhode Island that are plumbers by day. Of course, that was what the nuance was of it back
Ghost
then.
hunters.
But kind of really enabled me to get a bunch of buddies together and go legend tripping and go into places that maybe we shouldn't have gone. Definitely broke into a few places that were off limits. But our intent wasn't to do anything of the defacing of the location. It was just to get kind of our like interest and maybe be scared, or kind of, for me, it was fundamentally to get answers in some concept, but also to be spooked if could possibly be spooked. And so, yeah. So, of course, all that. And then, I became so invested into it, really what was the launching point that got me into demonology. And to end this tangent was that I was 18 years old. I would say more 19, but basically 19 years old. I went into the military. I was a service member in the U.S. Army. I was no more than a year because I got medically discharged after my training, and which kind of sucked. Slapped reality in my face, and really kind of has a lot to do with where I got my faith, because I do have faith now. But when I was in the military, every Sunday I would go to church or temple or some or synagogue or something like that to get away from cleaning the barracks. And there's this one time that I went to this service for the Church of Christ, and I would do my old routine of trying in the pews, or trying to wither off so a drill sergeant didn't see me, to get a few kind of extra kind of Z's in. And I felt like this sudden jolt over my body, and all of a sudden, before I really could understand what was being said by the pastor, I had raised my hand. And what I raised my hand to after that sudden jolt was to be baptized. And normally, yes, I'm a jokester, but normally I would rather try to get a nap in instead of getting dumped into a big tub of water, or aka holy water. And so, yeah, I raised my hand because of some sudden electrical jolt that happened to me. And after I got baptized that day, my perspective of being anti-Christian, anti-religion, and anti-all this, anti-God, I started actually becoming very religious. I started reading the Bible very heavily after that day. Started praying all of a sudden, which was pretty actually weird for me. And then, I would say 10 months, 11 months later is when I got medically discharged, after a full year of service. And, it really put me in a dark place, because, I wanted it to be a lifer. My step grandfather was lieutenant colonel. My grandfather served in 4 different branches. My biological grandmother, long story short, knew some of my family, even though I was adopted, of course. My biological grandmother was the first first woman officer in the Navy. So I had felt like I had let myself fail and let, a lot of my connections to the military fail. But then I realized something. I was like, this was a message to God. This was a path that I wasn't meant to go down. So really having that faith and that moment of being baptized really kind of gave me enough inner strength to overcome a lot of my ill intents of my past. I'm a suicide survivor, and at that point in my mind, I was also thinking I'm not good enough, and I could have ended my life, but because of my faith, I did not end my life. And then from that catalyst, I basically then became a pastoral assistant at my local Church of Christ down the street, probably 15 minutes away in East Greenwich, and doing pastoral assistancy with my pastor. Basically, would led me down to finally being ordained as a pastor myself. I anointed myself as a deliverance minister because the aspect of the paranormal and spiritual warfare then kind of melded together, because throughout that period of time going through my pastoral assistancy, I was also involved myself in investigation paranormal, which was kind of like an oxymoron because of what my church would preach, that ghosts would be demons kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at it in a different pathway and said that I do believe that things exist in a corporeal sense, and then a non-corporeal sense as well. So really
James,
all that kind of led me down to demonology. I could go longer and longer about my life and how it melded me into where I'm at right now, but that's the fast track. I'm 33 years old. That's 33 years of living that I could explain to you to why I'm where I am at now.
so in the field of paranormal, we deal with so many different religions right now, mainly Wiccan. There's a lot of witches involved, there's Jewish people involved. Does it really matter if they're Catholic to kind of appreciate the services of a demonologist? And also, where does God fit in the paranormal?
Well, that's a good question. I think that faith can be omnipotent and omnipresent in the situation. I think faith generally is a God-given gift, but at the same time, it's also, as a psychology major, it is also a component of our brain. The faith structure is a component of how our synapses fire off, how we are motivated, how we set goals, how we can believe in those goals. It really is fundamentally a big part of who we are. If we lack faith, then we probably will lack drive. And we see this now with the development of social science and neuroscience, but how faith transcends the paranormal in a sense is that I feel like ghosts and elementals and these beings that we talk about and investigate, even if it's paranormal in a large sense, aliens and cryptids, I think all has a connection to religion or faith or folklore, which also usually tends to come from a belief system, because a lot of these ideologies that we have in modern times all fluent from a specific belief system. The ideas of ghost or reincarnation or spirits lingering can come a lot from Eastern cultures. Hinduism being the oldest modern day religion, or even to the branches of animism, which everything is life, and everything has a soul. So a lot of religion or faith in general, or belief systems, has a deep connection to the paranormal, because without those civilizations that really quantified a specific thing to a specific other thing, we would not have the understanding of what ghosts are to this day. So it's really fundamentally through our adaptation from human civilization that we are at the point of where we believe in ghosts and other items in this specific cultures that believe in specific things differently. Western culture here in America 44% of people believe in ghosts. That's a large percentage of people, especially in a country that has 370 million people, I believe, give or take.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but still, that's a hell of a lot of people. 44% of that people is a lot. It's quite a few 100 million. It's about 100 million people, I think. But
there's 44,000 paranormal investigating groups alone.
Yeah,
on social media right now.
And most of those people have a faith structure to them. You know, I know there are a few skeptics or agnostic or atheistic people that are part of those groups, but many of those people have a faith structure. Because I went on a tangent. What was the second part of that question?
You know what? I even forgot what it was. Where does God fit in? Oh, I know what it was. Can these different faiths appreciate a demonologist who's coming primarily from a Catholic background?
Well, yeah, I would say I'm not just from a Catholic background because, yes, I did, of course, convert to Catholicism and became a deacon with the United States Old Catholic Church, which I'm no longer a part of and no longer associated with the church at this point in time in my life. But, I started off as a Christian, but I also started off technically as atheist or agnostic, whatever terminology you would like to coin it as. But I think my form of demonology is Christian oriented, but it's very eclectic. I've studied probably every major religion and every sub-religion that has existed throughout human civilization. So a lot of how I approach cases use a lot of the critical thinking that I've gained from observing different belief systems, reading about different belief systems. So, but there are also many different forms of demonology as well. There's rabbinical demonology, which is from the Judaic faith. There's Islamic demonology, where Muslim leaders would, of course, invoke the rite of exorcism or some form of it. Then there's also, of course, Hinduistic demonology in the sense because, Tibetan monks performed the rite of exorcism differently, but for many years before the Catholic rite ever came to fruition, by using a Ferber dagger, they would stab it, and they would absorb the energy into the dagger and then stab it in a bowl of rice so it disperses. My form of demonology is very eclectic, and yes, it is Christian oriented in my faith, how I believe in it, but I also don't detract away from other people's belief systems. I empower people to believe in something that is good for humankind. If it's not good for humankind and just good for yourself, then I really maybe not approachative or an agreeance to it. I'm friends with a lot of Satanists. Satanism is very misunderstood. They're very rebellious in nature, very prolific to the sense of believing in themselves, not really in a Satan like you would think they are in the Christian sense. I have a lot of friends that are Satanists and then really not bad people, but there are other religions out there that are centered on doing bad towards people, or at least not religions, but sects of religions. There's extremist Christians. The KKK is a Christian group. They're terrible people. But there are other forms of religions or faiths that have these extremist groups that go above and beyond the call of duty and do bad things. And I don't agree on that.
Hey, James, we have a special guest that popped up in the comments. It's Maria with Mysterious Adventures Tours, and she says hello to you.
Hey,
Just
Maria.
wanted to point that out.
I still
with all of the cases that you have been on over the years, how many cases that you would say, without a shadow of doubt, have been demonic in nature?
So quintessentially, I still linger on this number. I would say 5, and roughly give or take, here or there, depending on consultation, physically involved. I'm probably in the north of over 500 cases. So if you really equate 5 demonic cases to over 500 cases. That's basically 1% of my cases were ever considered or thought to be demonic. 3 of those cases, 100% were. 2, I'd have to. I'm not really unwavering, but I would say there's 2 more, so maybe 7. But 2 of those cases out of the 7 were highly debatable. Too early in my career to I didn't employ enough critical thinking or analyzing in it. I really just went off of like my gut feeling or thought, and yes, that could be good because it's a part of the tools I use.
And James, that's a really good point, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is that there's such a rise in demonologists right now in the paranormal field, and I feel like it takes a lifetime to be a true demonologist through study and things like that. What do you have to say about all these people popping up claiming to be demonologists, and what does it take to be a demonologist and to decipher between what is an actual demon and what isn't?
I always joke that I went to some band camp and got a badge for being a demonologist, but out of the realm, that's not true. In reality, I coined myself with that term. I started off using the title studying demonologist, and then of course then got the respect of peers, where using the title wasn't like far-fetched because people actually respected me, respected my drive. Like I said, I'm ordained in 2 different Christian denominations. Also, as of August, I'll have my psychology major, my psychology degree. So I also have put a lot of time and effort into researching as much as I can, helping people as much as I can free of charge, of course. So, quintessentially, like, there is no true way to become a demonologist in the sense that, like a licensure or like making it a career, career field. But the problem is that I see with a lot of people that start naming themselves as a demonologist, they feel like it's some roller coaster ride, some form of attraction of entertainment for them. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, aren't very well versed in a lot of different methodologies or ideologies, and it's scary because they're going to put people at risk. I think that a good demonologist understands some realm of psychology, and there's a lot of people that don't understand psychology or social science, and so coming up in this field at a young age, and as a young demonologist, probably I don't know, in history books in historical value, but I do believe from my understanding of the lineage of demonology from King James and beyond, I'm probably, if not the youngest demonologist that had existed at one point, in my ability of being involved in it. But so I faced a lot of flack. I faced a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's too young to be a demonologist." But knowledge is power, and age, age doesn't always equate to wisdom. So, it's scared. Be wary of people call themselves demonologists. I came from a lineage of people that were trained from Ed Warren, and worked with a lot of people that came from Ed Warren. I also worked with a lot of people that came from the churches, from different faith structures that deal with the form of spiritual warfare, and worked with them, learned from them. So it's like I put a lot of time and effort into it. Still put a lot of time and effort into it, learning every day, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I would have to say be wary of people that call themselves that. There's no yellow pages, or there's no Indeed of demonology. So you have to be careful. But I am actually working on something. One thing that I've always tried to do is companionship or unification. I hate the word unity because it's never going to happen. but you can attempt an action and try to unify as many people as possible. Not everybody will be unified, but I've attempted many times to get demonologists together of all different backgrounds. I had a big demonology panel a couple of years ago in Massachusetts with some of the most top tier demonologists out there. I'm working on, it's going to start in the new year, but, right now I have Leon Wilkes, myself, Shane McGillis, and possibly Keith Johnson working on this kind of brotherhood where we actually are going to push for an angle of actually somehow making demonology a true identification through either licensing boards, or something. If you go to Salem or you go to some places, to be a tarot card reader or a
Yeah,
palmer,
you have to have a license.
you have to get a license, right? So
That's even true here in Las Vegas. I just found this out.
yeah,
You have to have a
a lot of
license.
places do, especially if there's monetary gain to it.
Mhm.
But with what I do is no monetary gain, but I still want to push for, if you're promoting yourself as a demonologist, to get this licensure or to get a background check, a proven background check, a proven psychological evaluation, because I feel like that is a necessity, because when you're going into people's houses and saying the D word, you're putting people at a very big risk because it's a
Yeah.
psychological ramification. Because a lot of people, especially in Western culture, that believe in demons, I believe it's like a crazy high number about how many people believe in angels compared to ghosts. I think it's like 10% more, maybe like 55% of people believe in angels. But my numbers might be a little off, but I'm in the ballpark there. And what is it called? So, if you go into somebody's house and say you're dealing with a demon, they're already going to start analyzing what did I do wrong, what happened, and they're going to start have self doubt and start defeating themselves. And if they're not really dealing with a demon, self doubt and all these things can create mental health issues such as depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
paranoia. And so
And that's the thing that people don't understand is people can really get hurt through this if you're not properly trained.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like self-harm is a big thing. People like will take it out on themselves because they feel like they are the problem and that they already have mental health issues, which, where we are at in this time of age, we are seeing the most spikes in mental health issues that we've ever seen in human civilization. So where we are at now with the human mind, we have to be wary with what we're saying to people. Like it's maddening, even ghosts, even spirits. Yeah, I think when you're investigating people's houses in the normality of sense, you should be careful what you're saying to
Yes.
people. Like if they are dealing with something, it's great. Sugarcoat how you deliver it. Sometimes you deliver it the wrong way. It can make their
Right.
situation a hell of a lot worse. And these are issues that I see, issues I have to clean up, and unfortunately, a lot of clients don't want to hear it either. You tell them something, then, I've
Yeah.
had a lot of clients the past couple months that I tell them that, okay, well, you think you're dealing with a demon. Well, I need you to go see a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And then they stop talking to me because they think they're crazy. But it's, if you want help, if you go to a doctor and the doctor says, well, you're dealing with arthritis, you can take injections or you can do this. You could either listen to them or not listen to them, go get a second opinion. The second doctor says the same thing. The third doctor says the same thing. It's like, but eventually the problem is that within the paranormal field, they're going to come across a second demonologist, a third demonologist that calls himself that, and they're going to
Mhm.
get everything they want to hear. You know
Yeah,
what
you're
I'm saying?
exactly right.
So
And that I kind of this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Demon cells it's everywhere, and just about every haunted location now has a demon of some sort. Every television show you see, someone's getting possessed. Um, I just investigated the Goldfield Hotel here in Nevada, and honestly, the place is not as negative as what I saw on television. There was no way that people were getting possessed, and I didn't even feel a demonic presence at all in this place. There was nothing that indicates that. But just this past week, a video pops up on YouTube of this group of investigators, and of course, the girl that was in there is claiming to be possessed. It's like everybody wants to be possessed by a demon all of a sudden. Is this just people trying to get attention for money, or is this like a cry that they want to be touched supernaturally in some way? I mean, why is this trend happening?
Well, it's the good old marketing technique of sex sells. Now it's evil sells. Highest rated horror movies nowadays are on the concept of evil. Conjuring's $1 billion series. A lot of those cases that really had nothing to do with demons. Conjuring 1, 2, and 3 was a little bit different because that really does come off a variation of the boy David was. I believe really being possessed by something and dealing with something, but how it comes from there is speculative and debatable. But a lot of these big movies nowadays, even Insidious, which is one of my favorite, was about astral projection. Of course, magically there's a demon involved in that. So evil sells because it's really what people are scared of. It's what attracts people. Can you imagine watching the movies Paranormal Activity without there being a demon in it? Like you're just watching this fan move and it's like found footage and there's just a ghost. Casper's in there and dancing around. Like you would lose the value of that movie and the shock value of it. So a lot of that idea of sex sells, now it's evil sells, and we start to see this a lot. Look at the Travel Channel for a long time. Now it's starting to dissipate a little bit. It was about travel, Anthony Bourdain, Andrew Zimmerman,
Yeah,
and so
I
on and
miss
so on.
those guys.
And now it became all about paranormal. And it's because Travel Channel knew, well, look at Ghost Adventures, the longest running series, which started really, really well and then started to have its identity to understand, okay, well, if we do this, we'll start getting a lot of viewers, which they did. And now a lot of people are trying to copy that formula because they see how well Zach's done in that industry and how well he's done with, of course, his museum in Vegas. And so on, so on. So that's why, haunted objects are so much popular nowadays. John Zothis had the show Haunted Collector, but rarely did we ever hear about objects being collected and put in people's houses. Now, because of Zach Bagans, people are doing it out the wazoo. You can go on eBay, buy haunted dolls, which is a bunch of crapola. It's such a cultural phenomenon now that so many people are gravitating towards it. I've been, like you said, I've never been to Nevada, but I've been to a lot of other prolific places like Bobby Mackey's, Waverly Hill Sanitarium, and the list can go on. Basilica Axe Murder House, oh God, the House of Wills, a lot of these places that fundamentally have been told that there is some form of evil in there. And I never felt that at all. And I'm not saying I have a clairsentient ability or a clairaudient or clairvoyancy or clear ability at all in general. But I'm saying there's a difference between when I've experienced it, face to face in a predicament and felt my body trembling, the fight or flight instinct, the adrenaline instinct that comes on to you in those situations, even not really knowing that there was a presence there. You walk to the threshold of the door, it becomes wavering. It becomes very very hard. The barometric pressure can be felt. So in these spots, I never felt any of that. I felt calming, soothing. And then also, too, what really boggles my mind is, too, what people don't understand about demons. Yes, in some form, if you have a collective amount of people and do some black art and do some binding ritual to a location and tether this demonic spirit to this location, most of the time a demonic entity doesn't fester in one spot for long periods of times, because when they find their target, now they're with their target. And that's really how I start to analyze cases. If the client tells me when they leave their house they're fine, then I really start to kind of understand that it's something with the house. If it follows them, then it's maybe an attachment or could be truly demonic. Depends on the characteristics that they're experiencing and the physicalities and the iconography attacks as well. But a lot of these places don't have a demonic activity, and once again, it's like sex cells, but evil cells that it's going to attract people because people are fascinated by less the good, more the evil. When have you ever put a news channel on and said, well, today 10,000 babies were born, hip hip hooray for population? Well, Mayor Giuliano just saved 100 people today. No, it's about death and calamity that we hear about more than anything good. Yes, there's the good stuff that does periodically fall through, but it's really all about what's wrong with the world or wrong with people than what's good with people, and that's just humanity. It's how our psyche works.
So does that mean we're just hardwired to be messed up if we're always looking for the terrible in life? I have a question. There's a question from the audience that says, James, what about people that hang an exorcist sign up on their door? Is there an immeasurable risk that comes with this for victims that may think they are possessed?
Yeah, no, it's like calling yourself a demonologist and have no clue. But I think calling yourself an exorcist without any proper training or even without any proper ordination is highly dangerous because, I always tell people I'm a demonologist, not an exorcist, but an exorcist is a demonologist. Demonologist isn't an exorcist. Exorcists deal with a form of psychotherapy known as exorcism. And it in many ways, if the person that's not possessed, in relative way, an exorcism can be used as a form of psychotherapy, as a placebo effect, to make that person think that they actually have been rid of what external force they think they've been dealing with. Hippocrates is very well known for the father of medicine. He used to perform exorcisms early in his Greek days. To use it as a form of psychotherapy. Some exorcists do, but a lot of them don't nowadays because they understand the difference between mental health and a spiritual affliction. And a lot of even the Catholic Church will start to lean towards a mental health affliction than a spiritual affliction because we have, of course, now start to understand schizophrenia, bipolar, dissociative identity disorder. And we start to realize that a lot of things can really mimic what we thought to be demonic for a very long time in civilization. Like the European Inquisition, where millions of people, or up to a million people, died due to superstition, either being witches, werewolves, being possessed by demons, were killed, burnt at the torch, rocked. So on and so on, because of witch hunters. And we thought that was a connection to evil, to Lucifer, Satan, or the devil. So, we've come to really understand the human mind now. But yeah, to call yourself an exorcist without any proper training or any proper ordination is very dangerous because you're going to attract people that are, either mentally ill or really dealing with something. And then when you're presented this and you're physically there trying to be some sort of, I'm going to call it a charlatan because at that point they are a charlatan. But when this person is trying to help these people, they're gonna fumble and they're gonna put people at danger. That person can under influence kill themselves or become such a shell of who they are. So there's a lot of dangers when you fumble the ball in these situations. And I'm not saying an exorcist like that is properly trained will never fumble a ball, but there are proper precautions, there's proper protocols if things don't work. Usually proper exorcists will actually have medical staff involved in the exorcism, either a nurse or a doctor or somebody that can take vitals. So when exorcists get involved through their proper protocols, which the Catholic Church does, due to liability reasons, there is a procedure, and it's very important to have these procedures. But when you're having somebody that calls themselves an exorcist that has no connection to a church, has no proper training, then they're not going to have these procedures, and they're going to put themselves at risk, and of course the people they're dealing with at risk, and that's dangerous.
Can demonic activity and negative entities have some impact on the human mind? I know we talked about suicides already, but what do you think of murders, such as that famous case in Connecticut with Arnie Johnson, who says that the devil made him do it? Do you think there's any truth to that? Do you think he was like mentally ill? Are there any cases that exist that may have been influenced by demonic?
Well, I don't. So I work with I did, great friend. We did have a podcast together, called True Evil. She's a leading criminologist. Her name is Laura Brand. She was the toolbox killer expert, and I've had the ability for quite a few times. She gets calls every day from San Quentin, which is the largest concentration of serial killers in the country. And she gets calls from them frequently on a daily basis, and I've sat on many calls with her when these people call, and I've asked this question a few times, and I've asked her this question a multitude of times. I do not believe when people are serial killers or murderers that they are necessarily conceived by some evil to do a task. And I'm not saying it possibly can't happen. When I was talking about David the Child and The Conjuring 3, that is actually the Arnie Johnson case. That's the Devil Made Me Do It case. That was the first time in the United States history or the judicial system where demonic possession was utilized in the defense of the U.S. court system. Wasn't the first time in the world, because the first time it was ever adjudicated towards was actually the Annalise McKell case, where she actually died during exorcisms, and the priests were tried, and of course they presented the argument that she was demonically possessed. So it wasn't the first time ever presented in a court system, but I don't know. I don't know of any true cases, and Arnie's a great friend of mine. I've broken bread with Arnie many times. I don't know. I all I can say is we did a episode. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but if you look up True Evil, we actually interviewed him and Tony Spera about the case, and just listen to it and feel like what you feel off of his story. I'm in the middle ground because he's a friend of mine, and I really can't tell you what I really think of that case, because I don't want to ruin friendships, and I respect his perspective of it and what he went through. But just listen to that episode and see what you take into it as face value. But like the Son of Sam, I believe he actually said that he saw a demonic dog. That's not true. That it was all fabrication. So a lot of these people that feel like they have been presented by evil to do something, it's in reality not true. But throughout civilization, I think a lot of it was mental illness. A lot of it is mental illness. But I will say, though, and I will defend this, is that when people are dealing with demonic possession or oppression, or even dealing with demonic infestation, if somehow have this demonic entity that tethers to them or their family, or is creating mayhem in their life, they are likely that they have a traumatic history, and there is a sense of trauma there. And every case that I've ever had that deals with this topic, or even in form of attachment, has a level of trauma to their life, either if it's minute or very expansive. But so it's very interesting to see that trauma and mental health is a portion to why people deal with some of these things. So there is a commonality to it. But as far as murders, I really can't explicitly say that it's true or not, to be honest with you. To me, there's, beside the Arnie Johnson case, there's really no other case to really throw stones at, say it really happened.
What about vices that people have, such as alcohol addiction and drug addiction, depression, things like that? Do those come into play at all?
Yeah, well, I think that if you are being oppressed by a demonic entity, if you never drank in your life, you could start drinking heavily. You could start abusing drugs. You could start being depressed. And I think that really a lot of this festers off of what this entity might be telling you to do, or what your body or your mind uh, is reactive to through what you are going through in this affliction. Because one of the things when a demonic entity does enter you or does enter the premise and does start oppressing or infesting a location, its intent is to lower your morale, decimate your faith, so then it has a point of intrusion, and a way of access into that person that is the target. So yeah, it will utilize your weaknesses, vices, to counteract any positivities you have in your life. It will decimate any relationships with friends, family, so you don't have any social support. So yeah, a lot of those things are proactive in what a demonic entity can do in those kind of hauntings.
If there is a listener out there who thinks they are being tormented by demonic activity, what is your advice for them?
Well, instead of doing your own research like WebMD, which is atrociously bad for you when you have a health issue, reach out.
It's bad for you if you have a health issue too.
Yeah, reach out. Yeah, it is. But reach out to somebody like myself. You can contact me. At the end of the show, if it's not the end of the show already, you can contact somebody like me. Do research on Demonologist. You can put my name in, it'll pop up a bunch of different shows. A lot of events that I've ever done. I've been on a few television programs, documentaries. That doesn't always give you the ability that you can actually help somebody. But I'm saying you can research somebody's name and see what their accolades are or what their backgrounds are. If you look up my name, it shows you that I go to Southern New Hampshire University for my psychology degree. So these accolades are presentable when you Google somebody's name. If you Google Joe Schmo and nothing comes up relating to demonology, then definitely advert away from Joe Schmo. And especially if they don't give references, but reach out to somebody like me. If you're watching the show, if you need help, 401-808-7416, call me. If you abuse me, I'll abuse you, but call me, email me, JAYANNITTO@yahoo.com, or you go to my website if it's easier for you. And if you can't understand that, jamesannitto.com. Crystal can post it if she like. But yeah,
It's definitely posted.
one of
It'll be
those
posted.
one of those means, get in touch with me. You might not like what I have to tell you if you feel like it's one thing, but all I can say is listen to me. And I am a specialist in this for a reason, and a lot of people respect me for a reason when it comes to this topic. So sometimes you got to swallow a large pill to get to where you need to. But I feel like throughout my time, I've done something different. I try to find out a cause and effect. I don't just try to nullify it. I find out the cause and effect so that I can help these people live a better life for the rest of their life without just it being a few months or a few weeks. And it's very important, to dig as deep as you can to find why this is at the surface.
Gotcha. James, we are just about at the end of the hour already. Can you believe it?
Well, I definitely can believe it because I like to just talk. So, but
Words of a lecture.
Some deep questions though, really good questions, and like I tell most people, it's like when you're in love with something, the producer talking about Elon Musk before we went live,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the Elon Musk of the paranormal because like how hyperactive his mind is and the way he speaks and articulates his words is how I feel because he's in love what he does. Like he is an inventor. He thinks of many different things of how things can move forward, and that's how I am in this field. I love what I do. I've researched it for so many years, and it just like my mind just goes overload and hyperactive when this topic comes at hand. And how many things that I've researched. There are so many different pathways you can go. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of hyperpole to this field, and
too much TV.
yeah, there's just so much you can talk about.
One of the things I do want to ask you before we go, we went on this trip together last year, Romania. It was a very dark trip that we went on, tracing the footsteps of Vlad the Impaler through Transylvania. What was that like for you, and what were some of the things you carried away from that trip?
Oh man, like short and sweet is, of course, I went on that trip with a lot of baggage, going through a breakup, and dealing with that emotion, having a great time, having a lot of fun with a lot of different people, including yourself. But really, how they lived out there, the food, the lifestyle, the beauty. I think of Romania every single day. I wish
Yeah, I do too.
I wish I could be Andrew Tate or one of the other Tate brother and live there like they do. Not like them specifically in the same demeanor, but like them with how they live there and live a luxurious lifestyle. But I want to go back to Romania one day again. I loved it. To especially to do a lot of things that we did. Especially investigate Corvin's castle, investigate Vlad the Impaler's birth home. It was Vlad Tepes' birth home. It was just, it was so amazing, But when I came back to life, my life went to utter shit. So, I wish I stayed in Romania, but I'm glad to where I'm at right now. Things are blooming sunshines and sunflowers and everything now, and life's a great predicament now. But I think that for a lot of us, and I think including yourself, Crystal, knowing you personally, and a lot of what we talked about, it was an awakening in some sorts.
Yeah, it really was.
It made us look at the dark side of ourselves. Really awoken us, and that was the beauty of that trip.
It was quite the trip. So I think that's the end of our hour. What kind of trips or what kind of projects are you working on right now? Are you coming back to the paranormal? Because I know you've taken a break there for a little bit.
Yeah, so I have been back. I've been doing a few radio shows, been doing a few consultations. I just got done doing a couple of events the past couple of months, So, I'm not in it the way I used to be. I have a 17-month-old child, I have a 7-year-old child. So really they're taking a lot of my time. I have a day career that, takes a lot of my time. I'm the third in the company, in the hierarchy. So my workload is nuts. So, I really been focusing on my personal life and my work life. And of course this is a part of my life too, but, baby steps. I'm not trying to run right back into it the way I used to do it. My biggest thing right now is probably working on that thing with Leon Wilkes and Shane McGillis and Keith Johnson, and trying to get that brotherhood off the ground and trying to get licensure. It's a long road. I'm not saying within next year, but within the next couple of years, we'll have a little bit more of a distinct idea of where that's going to go. But yeah, that's probably be my big bread and butter from now on, because I really feel like that it really needs to change, and just keep growing myself, keep learning about life every single day, learning something new. But yeah, that's my biggest thing. And I know Maria said Romania is waiting you. Well, let me finish paying this trip off first, and then we'll talk about maybe doing another Romania trip. But I would extremely love to do so, and hopefully that does happen and comes to fruition.
Well, thank you so much, James, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I love it. Very inquisitive as always, Crystal. And I'd love to be back on again for part 2 in the future.
Absolutely. I'll definitely have you back.
Perfect.
You've been listening to The Gateway. My guest, James Annitto. You can find him at www.jamesannitto.com. You've been listening to C.L. Thomas. We are United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans. I have some great guests coming up next week. Psychic medium Scott Allen to discuss spirit communication, so stay tuned. Until next time.